Hello, everybody, and I hope you are having an okay week despite what's happening in our country. And I have not even watched the world news, so I couldn't tell you. It has been very hard deciding when and how to begin this class. When we talk about communication technological changes, that's easy for me. I don't have a problem doing history. But when we start looking at what we saw last Wednesday, and the lines start being blurred between what we do online and what we do in our government houses, things get a little bit more, they get tricky. Let's put it that way. And so during the course of this semester, we're probably going to end up talking about how social media played a rather large role in what we saw last Wednesday, whether or not that's okay, and whether or not we feel comfortable with the government telling certain people, certain groups, etc., that they cannot do things. And then are we okay with private companies that do the same, such as Facebook, Twitter, and so on? So these things will continue to come up as a theme for the rest of the semester. But as we all are taking a communication technology and politics class, I would assume that's probably okay with you. So, for those of you who haven't met me yet, I do things pretty casually. I'm pretty sure that you could tell that by now, at least. And I don't really, I'm not really very opaque. I like to be fairly transparent about what's going on with me so that, you understand that I can accept things that you're doing. So, for me, honestly, I've been bored. I've been really bored because my 11-year-old stepdaughter is down in Arkansas with her mother. My grandchildren are in Arkansas with their mother. My husband and I have a fairly sizable home for two people. It's just, I mean, when there's 8 people in here or 6 or sometimes even 4, it feels crowded. But for some reason, when there's only 2 of us, it feels like a McMansion, which it is not, but it feels like it. So I have been looking for things to do. And then last week, the world decided to give me something to do. And I literally have been glued to my television ever since. And here's the funny part: I don't have cable. I don't really turn on my antenna for local news. I mainly like stream on YouTube and things like that and just look at the headline. Do I want to listen to that? Yes, I do. Or, what's going on right now in the Senate or what's going on right now in the House, and that gave me the potential to have the play by play for all of these different things. And I would expect you to say yes. All of the nerds do that, right? We political nerds do that. But it's not just political junkies who are doing that right now. It's everybody. Everybody is watching what the United States is going to do next, because we tend to set the standard for some things, and we certainly set whether or not people are going to feel secure and stable or not. So it's important what's happening right now. And in that way, I justify my laziness. You really would think I would jump on the elliptical or something, but I can't do that either because my left leg is in a cast. So you see my dilemma here. I can't go outside. I can't go to my elliptical. I can't even make it down my steps for now. And so I have nothing better to do than sit and watch the television and watch some horrible things come across my screen. Now, despite what you might think, television and politics, that's actually a relatively new thing in the history of our entire government, honestly. If we start our government in 1776 when the revolution happened, that's still not that far off from the first constitutional convention, right? Where we started to form the Constitution. And then, of course, as we all know, it was not signed, ratified, and everything until 1787. And so, even if we go from 1787, we're talking about a long freaking time. I remember when I was born in 74. My brother was born in 76. So he was the 200th, the bicentennial baby, right? He was actually born on July 7th that year, which, of course, 4th of July would have been cool, but there he was. And so he celebrates his birthday every year with fireworks. Um, and then I realized the other day I'm pushing 50, which means that so is the country pushing 250, right? So almost 250 years of history. And television really became a part of politics in 1960. That sounds like it was a long, long time ago, but it was, 200 years after the country started that we started to see the impact of television. So prior to that, what could I possibly talk to you about if I'm talking about communication technologies and politics? And the good news is that there's actually quite a bit and there's quite a lot, and it's boring as heck, but we're going to get through it because trying to get to the point where we're talking about television, social media, just computers, the internet, whatever, all of that is a very small portion of what this class could potentially cover. But obviously, that's what's going to be of interest to us right now. So, how are we going to do that? How do we organize all of this stuff? We obviously start off with history. We're going to start off with what technologies were developed and what they did to the country as they were developed, specifically in terms of how they affected politics. And you've heard about some of these. I mean, obviously, Gutenberg is the first, right? The printing press that made newspapers, right? That was really important because we were able to get information now to people that they sometimes didn't get for weeks or months. Literally, the president was elected in New York or in D.C., and we literally did not know who was elected for months because the horseback had to get all the way across, I don't know, Pennsylvania and Ohio into Illinois or whatnot. So there was a time when we didn't know the night of who won the election. And definitely not anytime soon. But the newspapers helped with that. Later on, radio, of course, you've heard about FDR's fireside chats on the radio and how that brought an immediacy to the people with their president. The first photograph came before that. That's obviously important. If you can tell me who the first president to have their photograph taken was, like, as they're in their inaugural, I will give you props and say, hey, high five or something. I'll do something. But that there is a very specific designation for that. Magazines that became international changed things, and then television in 1960 was the big change. We'll talk about that, and then of course. The internet, which really didn't start impacting politics. Well, they tried to use them in 96. They were terrible at it. 96 was a bad year for that to happen. Um, it just was, I mean, God bless Bob Dole, but web pages, come on, guys. Of course, now we snicker at that, but at the time it was such a new thing, right? It was novel and it was cool. And then we were 10 years later, everybody was a pro at it. And by 2008, fundraising was almost all through digital with Barack Obama, and we had these incredible experiences with the president on Twitter and through video that we're able to share and spread. And of course, we were able to manipulate all of these things as well, which brought in a big question about ethics. So the first thing that we're going to do is just simply talk about what the technologies are as they developed from really, we'll really start way back, but we only need to concern ourselves with about 1790 or 1800 on. And that seems like a reasonable place to start, I think, for looking at the impact on our government. Some of you might not realize this yet, but one of the great impacts of the printing press was the Federalist Papers. For those of you who have read them, you know that they're long. For those of you who have not, they're long. And, the Constitution is relatively short. It's really not that long. So if you ever talk to someone and they're arguing about the Constitution and you say, have you read the Constitution? And they're like, oh, no, it's too long. As Jordan Klepper said to somebody who gave him that answer, actually, it's pretty short. It can fit on like one sheet of paper. There's something to be said for how the essays of three of our founding fathers somehow managed to change the way that we interpret the Constitution, the way the Supreme Court looks at the Constitution. So there's some really interesting questions that we don't think about today. Like, people will say, well, Federalist Paper number 52 says blah. And we're like, oh, yeah, of course. Well, that makes sense. Why are we following the Federalist Papers? Why aren't we following the Constitution? Well, because the Federalist Papers sort of gives us more information, more details about what's in the Constitution, what's supposed to be happening that we may have misinterpreted. So, kind of an interesting question about how that technology, papers, how those changed the way that our government is even run. And we'll talk more about that. So that's what this class is all about. It's about not how to use technologies, but I mean, that's part of it, of course, because in order to understand the impact of communication technologies on politics, we have to understand how they work and what they do. And so we will be talking about that as well as effects. We'll be looking at how people study um, technology as it changes and what some of the initial reactions to tech always are. I mean, my goodness, y'all, we had a big fight about freaking mail-in ballots. Mail. The Pony Express was a question this year. My mind is blown. That pretty much justifies having this class, I'm pretty sure. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing is I'm going to be posting for you a timeline of technologies and how they developed, and that sort of stuff that you don't necessarily need to research or memorize, because we're more interested in the effect that they had on politics. Your part, I would like you to do a Blackboard discussion board, a couple of sentences. And the question I'm going to have you answer is going to be, what technology do you think has affected politics the most in history? I know y'all are like, obviously it's the internet. May or may not be. By the way, this answer does not have a right or wrong answer. This is you telling me what you think, your opinion. Right now, it would be great if you could come up with a minor justification for it. All right, so just a couple of sentences, nothing too big. And I don't know when I made the first assignment due, but I'm gonna make this due exactly 1 week from today. So that would be the 21st, January 21st by 5 p.m. I'd like you to have your discussion board answer up and ready to be viewed. So let's do that. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything else in the meantime, you know what my email is. And some of you even have my phone number. Actually, now all of you have my phone number. Please feel free to use it. You may text, you may call, you may do whatever you want. If I'm asleep or busy, I will not answer. So do not have any fear about bothering me. I just simply ignore you if I'm busy, and I'll get back to you later. But sometimes it's the fastest way to get a hold of me if you need an answer to a question immediately. So I'm happy to meet you all. I've let more and more people into this class than I ever thought I would. That's partially due because to the fact that I don't need a classroom. I'm not restricted by classroom numbers. And I thank you all for being willing to go on this journey with me via Zoom. It's something I have to do. I am never on campus. You should probably know that. I don't leave my house. I am immune compromised and also on chemotherapy drugs. So I have to be extremely careful. And therefore, it's not that I don't want to see you. Believe me, I do. There is nothing that can replace all of us sitting in a classroom and having a discussion. But this is better than nothing. I feel like we're living comparatively these days. So anyway, I will be talking to you all soon. In the meantime, check out Blackboard and check out the bulletin board, the discussion board, excuse me, and I'll be talking to you all very, very soon.